I'm actually gonna skip the one question to the next one because that's what it is. How did you build your trusted peer network? Right. We talked about some of the sources where people went to. We talked about John Harmer meeting people at some of the local communities or its former coworkers. How do you build a trusted peer network? And how, not just how do you find the people, but how do you over time build those relationships and know they're the right people for you? I'd love to get your take, Steve, since we've done it together for a little bit.
Well, I should be able to say that I followed a very planned approach, except, having worked with me for a while, I'm terrible at planning. Um, what I guess I found is that my peers end up being at the same conferences I'm at, as speakers. I go to an event and, there's Rich Marinoff and, there's April Dunford and there's David Daniels. And so, as I go to these places, I often find I'm seeing the same people. And just through familiarity, like we read each other's books and we quote one another, I suppose. But I guess that, yeah, well, and a little bit proactively. I have looked at people who are kind of in my space, and reach out to them and say, hey, maybe there's something we can do together. And usually the answer's, we haven't figured out what that may be, but we're on each other's podcasts or we're on each other's webinars. And I've had a number of occasions over the last 10 years where people will call me and say, how are you doing what you're doing? Because it's, what you're offering is different than what we offer, but fundamentally, your business is the same. And just sharing ideas on either product management topics or how to be an independent consultant topics, is very supportive of people in similar scenarios. So over time, Greg Preckerell, who's the guy in the UK? Ian Lunn at Product Focus.
Yep.
So as I'm just playing it out in my head, I mean, I've either reached out to people for advice or been reached out to for advice, and continue maintaining those relationships through email and Zoom calls.
So there's a great point that we hadn't talked about earlier. Part of this is your network is individual connections you've made and groomed, you being able to reach out to a Rich Mironov or an April Dunford just for a conversation when you're going through something. Part of it, a peer network, is also having a group of people, the shared, this type of environment, or the calls we had, or to John Harmer's point, those 3 or 4 dudes in the Slack channel. I'm going to get right to the elephant in the room, John. The 3 or 4 dudes in the Slack channel, did it start as 2 dudes in the Slack channel and people got added? Did everybody know each other, or originally
Yeah, we all knew each other and worked together at a previous company, and that's how it started. And the goal is that it will ultimately grow, but in a unbelievably curated way. Scott's just being very careful about it, which I totally understand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like a repeatable model necessarily. It's just sort of, lightning struck with these 4 guys. And we happen to do that.
My first job out of grad school, I was working for a GE Information Services, EDI company, now GXS, or now part of OpenText. And we had a team, market research team, supporting the strategy organization. And 7 of us around the table, every single person, if you ask them, would say they were the weakest link. And that was a level of that. Probably the only time I had a group like that at a company. Now this was 1996, 7, 8. We didn't have the same technology. I'm linked with most of them on LinkedIn, but I think we lost out on that chance to we didn't have a Slack channel or LinkedIn or whatever else with the technology, how we barely had mobile phones at that time. I really wonder what would have been if we could have done the same thing, because I would have valued that. And having people you went through that type of stuff together is great.
Yeah, well, I would say in this particular venue, we would all agree that you are indeed the weakest link.
You are the weakest link.
Hey, I know my expertise is in the facilitation, right? I may be the weakest link when it comes to product But facilitation is my, when I was interviewing for getting my MBA program, they said, Grant, you're a white man with a bachelor's degree in management. What are you going to bring to this program? We like to think we're diverse. I'm like, I'm really
from
good
Pennsylvania.
well, it was at Penn State too, so that wasn't really diversity. But I came up with, I'm a really good communicator. I'm really good at talking with people and understanding different motivations. And you got all these people from all these different cultures. You need somebody who'd be able to bring them together to work together. And so it got me in. So I think I stick with that.
You're the Rosetta Stone.
Yes, I am. Jason.
Well, it's funny. I landed when I was in Newport News, since it's a shipbuilding community, there wasn't really any product managers. Everybody was a project manager, so the title wasn't really there. And so when I moved to Charlotte 2 years ago, I literally went to LinkedIn, looked at who the product management kind of senior people were, not necessarily chief product officers, but VPs and directors of product management by companies that are here in Charlotte, and then just cold call them. And the topic was, what is there here in Charlotte for product managers? And then, through that conversation, I found out a little bit about how they got there, what they're doing, and then obviously supporting of a network community once I can get that going. But I thought that was an interesting approach is kind of that curating is, finding people that are at the level that you want and connecting with them and just asking for a brief phone call and just having a topic to talk about real quick and not taking more than 20 minutes of your time. And since then, I've had, some coffees and I can reach out at any time, and they've been very supportive with trying to get networking going here. And so it's been interesting.
So you're at a place where outside of this group, you're more individual one-on-one, but it sounds like in the Charlotte community, you guys are working on building something that's going to be a more group.
Yeah, we're looking to create a community. But I think I'm the only one that's like uber passionate about it to keep moving forward, and everybody else just kind of wants something to happen for them.
Yeah.
But they'll be supportive.
Okay.
You should talk to Jason Brett in Atlanta.
I'm very connected to Jason for sure.
Okay.
He was one of the first ones I reached out to.
Yeah, because he's making things happen in this regard.
I know he's got a lot more energy than I do, but it's just I just need like one other person to help me. But
Indeed. I remember when I was there was a back before Product Camp. I can't remember his name right now, but I was in Boston and he wanted to start a product management association. And Boston was the only product management association that had a name instead of an acronym. Everybody else was like the DCPMA. Boston is bostonproducts.org, which I think is brilliant. And yet the people who are there don't care for it because they refer to it as BPMA. But anyway, I remember vividly saying to the president of this organization, your trick is to volunteer other people. What generally happens is the president says, will somebody get pizza? No one. Okay, I'll get pizza next time. Can somebody set up a website? Nobody. Okay, I'll set up the website. And what you really need to do is have, you have to have more than yourself in the meeting, but yeah. Once you do, it's like, hey, John, would you bring the pizza next time? Hey, Jason, could you put together a boilerplate website for us to look at, a week from now? And I think in my experience, most people are perfectly willing to be volunteered, but are very reluctant to actually volunteer.
Yeah.
But they have to be in the room with you. I mean, you can't just randomly call somebody and say, would you set up a website for me?
Yeah.